Now, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has declared that the United States no longer views Israeli settlements in the West Bank as violation of international law. Now, this is a move that has sparked reaction, mixed reaction actually, from across the globe. RT's Alex Mihailovich is following the story in Toronto. You know, Alex, I want to get the full side of this. So one of the big questions is why? Why does it seem like the U.S. reversed a policy that has been on the books for nearly 40 years could it be this new administration underneath President Trump?
Well, what we are seeing is the Trump administration basically rejecting something that the State Department came up with in 1978. They believe that according to international law, that they deemed the settlements in the occupied West Bank, and this is according to the State Department, it was inconsistent with international law. Now, if you're looking at the State Department and that decision at that point in time, it was consistent with international law as well as the opinion of countries around the world. What the Trump administration has done is gone 3 years into the future from 1978 to 1981, when Ronald Reagan, president at that time, had a very different opinion of what was going on. He was saying it was that said the settlements were not inherently illegal, and the Trump administration has chosen to agree with that stance. Now, there could be a couple of reasons. Domestically speaking, for the Trump administration, there are two major voting groups that they could be trying to appeal to. That would be the Evangelical vote as well as right-leaning Jewish vote within the United States of America. Of course, some people are also saying that there's trying to distract right now. The Trump administration is trying to distract the American public away from the hearings that we're looking at, the impeachment hearings right now in the States. From an international perspective, we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel is in deep trouble. He's very right-leaning, and he needed some sort of boost from someplace or other. This could be what Trump's doing as a gift to Netanyahu, trying to fix a situation where it's a good chance that he's not going to be Prime Minister after tomorrow. So give him a little bit of a boost. Also, some EU politicians are saying that this is just an outright attempt by the U.S. to say international law, we don't care about it. According to one EU figure, they actually said this is like the U.S. giving international law what he said, the middle finger, quote unquote.
Well, Alex, it's going to be interesting to kind of see where this develops. And I've got to also ask kind of what is the reaction we're seeing from other countries? And, you know, it shouldn't be a surprise that President Trump is following President Reagan. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, actually, considering what President Trump has been saying all along, that he would declare something like this. But the question is, how is the rest of the world responding to it?
Well, this is a major move, but at the same time, you have to understand this is a U.S. policy move. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to become international law because the U.S. says so. So what the EU is saying is you know, we're talking about the close allies, the closest of close allies. The EU is not agreeing with this. They are having a lot of problems with this whole announcement, and friends and foes alike are kind of saying, hey, you know, we've got to slow down here, the Trump administration. Now, for the European Union, it's what I mentioned. You know, they're saying the Trump administration is trying to look at the segment at home, get a voter base, also the international law thing. Now here, I've got to bring up this quote. This is international law, and I think it's pretty clear. Article 49 of the 4th Geneva Convention says the occupying power shall not deport or transfer parts of its own civilian population into the territory it occupies. We know that 650,000 Israeli Jews are now in over 100 settlements in the West Bank, so one doesn't quite work with the other. So the EU is already calling for an end to all these settlements. It's done that time and time again, and it's shouted out one more time, seeing what the U.S. just did. Also, Turkey, a U.S. ally. Here's a quote from the Turkish foreign minister, also gives you an idea of where they're standing. No country is above international law. Fait accompli style declarations shall have no validity with respect to international law. Of course, once you move to the Middle East, as you can imagine, the Palestinians are not happy with this. They are saying that they're condemning this announcement. Their friends there, the Jordanians, Syria, Egypt, are all alongside with them. As for the Russians, they're saying that this is causing a blow to the peace process. But imagine what's happening in Israel. Of course, Netanyahu and the right-leaning politicians of that country are applauding Trump's move in that respect.
So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but nothing surprising as to where the people are falling along their alliances. Now, I want to thank you for covering this. And the one last question I have for you, these are a lot of words right now. And like you said, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's law because the United States has done this. Does this actually come with any action behind it or expected action more from the United States?
Well, the United States is actually, as soon as that came out from Pompeo, there was also a step back. They're saying, we're not meddling in the process here. We're not saying that the West Bank is now an Israeli territory. We're not talking about the legalities of individual settlements. This is sort of just a blanket statement that was tossed out. But are there any teeth there? Not really. This is just something that some groups are going to utilize or have in their pocket now. Again, what the Russians said, it's a blow to the peace process, but we have to see how deep this is actually going to go. It's not a good thing for the peace process. Nobody's going to say that. But at the same time, even the U.S. has pulled back a little bit and said, we're not talking about changing our whole outlook at the situation in Israel and the territories, Gaza and the West Bank. This is just one specific comment that they're talking about international law, and it just seems that they're riding Reagan's coattails on this.
Well, and that's one thing that President Trump would be thrilled and very happy to do. The question is, this is a very aggressive statement, probably the most aggressive yet in regards to the West Bank from the United States. Alex, thank you so much for covering it.
It's hard to clear through the debris and get right down to the nitty-gritty that is real news.
New details are coming to light in the case of Jeffrey Epstein as more
spread between the 2-year Treasury yield and the 10-year Treasury yield.
Several hundred students are staging a sit-in.
The Amazon rainforest, and the blame game is underway. It's time for RT America. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button.